Hi, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is 12 midday, 5 past 12 midday. Imagine love without conditions is what my t-shirt says. They're sort of witnessing shirts that I wear out, and you can find them on Glory t-shirts in the link below. So this is the second installment, part two of interview with Joseph, saviour of Egypt. This is part two, and we're going to continue with the questions. We covered the first four questions out of 16 in video one, and we're going to cover some more questions here. This is Joseph, who was sold into slavery in Egypt and ended up saving the Egyptian race from a famine. So I've got my coffee and I'm prepared, and so I'll just pray. So, dear Father, I pray that you would help me bring Joseph's voice to people, and that it would be a helpful message, a message that will help many people who hear it, and help people who are suffering and languishing in what they feel is similar to a prison. And I pray that this story will encourage them and build them up. In Jesus' name I ask, amen. So I'll just let Joseph speak. First of all, I'll ask question 5. How did you feel about being sold into slavery? So this is Joseph. As I was sharing, I come from a very happy family. I was a happy child. And suddenly, when I shared my dream, my brothers were really angry with me, and my father was angry with me. And I went from being a free person to being sold into slavery. And it was just heart wrenching. We come from times where there was slavery, and I was put in basically chains and led off to Egypt, and and I remember standing on the auction block and just hoping that I'd get a good master. Just it was my prayer, like a silent prayer to God, that I would get for myself a good master, one that would treat me with dignity. I had some skills on farming, and um, I was fit and muscular, and all my happiness had gone, but I wasn't joking around. I wasn't in a joking mood, and I was fortunately purchased by Potiphar, who was an upstanding, wonderful man. So the next question is, what was it like serving Potiphar? So I started in a junior sort of rank with Potiphar, and soon he realized that I was pretty smart and pretty wise, and put me as head over his house. And he was a wonderful man. And if you had to be a slave and work without pay, uh, Potiphar was the guy that you'd want to work for. You know, he was an upstanding citizen. He had a good reputation among men, and he was fair with me, and comforted me, and he seemed to understand my plight, and he was good to talk to. He was a good person to deal with, and everything was going well um, until his wife was attracted to me. And What do you do with a flirtatious woman? She was making innuendos, and then finally, I wouldn't take the bait. Of course, this is all pre Moses and the law of God, and thou shalt not commit adultery. But um, you know that the laws of God are written on people's hearts, and I knew that sleeping with Potiphar's wife was against God's moral principles, and it wasn't the right thing to do. And succumbing to her seduction didn't make it any better, didn't make it any more righteous. And so she wanted to do the wrong thing, but I wouldn't succumb to it. And like it says in the Bible, uh, she uh, she tore some of my clothing, and or her clothing. Matthew doesn't remember what happened, but she had evidence to take, or false evidence to take to Potiphar. She was very attractive. She was a very controlling woman. She was used to getting her own way. She's very attractive, very, very alluring, very seductive. And her husband could understand me wanting to possess her and taking the risk of committing adultery with her and raping her. And so it was understandable that a man would desire her because she was very attractive and youthful, and certainly men desired her, and she was used to getting what she wanted, and she was unabashedly angry with the fact that I wouldn't succumb to her seduction. And she secured Potiphar that way, and she could secure any man she liked, normally with her charms. And that's typical of someone with a Jezebel spirit, that they are good at seducing people. Jesus mentions in Revelation that Jezebel seduces men into sexual immorality, and that's exactly the modus operandi of Jezebel. And so Potiphar's wife was like that. And they're also cunning and mischievous liars, and very convincing liars. And so she turned on the waterworks and turned on the tears and told Potiphar that I'd abused her. And she just turned on the waterworks. And what was he to do? Was he to say, I don't believe you? Joseph's an upstanding man. There's no way he would have done that. He saw the tears, he saw the circus that uh, made, and she sent me to prison. It wasn't him. He did that. He even was sad to see me go, and but notwithstanding, the charge deserved to be punished. And because Potiphar's an upstanding man, he allowed the due punishment to happen. The only problem was, like getting sold into slavery by my own brothers, once again I was innocent, and fate was working against me. And so it was a terrible shock. It was very disheartening to be sent to prison, and I'll talk about prison in a little while when we get to that question. But um, I want to give a shout out to all those people out there that have been falsely accused of things. Matthew was accused of putting his hand up a girl's skirt one time when he just touched her on the leg. And he was charged with a sex based offence, which made him like a child predator in Australia. And he can't drive taxis anymore because of that charge. And so that charge just ruined his life. And so it's quite possible to be charged in this world and to be innocent. And Matthew has understood that, and it was his favourite job, driving taxis, meeting strangers. Matthew likes to interact with strangers and prophesy over strangers. And in a taxi, you had a active, a willing audience who wanted to go home and was quite happy to talk to the taxi driver on the way home. And so it was his favorite job. And this woman falsely charged him, and he found himself not being able to get a taxi license anymore. So Matthew to this day still has dreams of driving taxis, and it's very disheartening. So if you've been accused of something, if you're suffering for something that you didn't do, um, I understand you and I relate to you. And uh, every story in the Bible is in the Bible for a reason. The stories in the Bible are for us to meditate on and draw lessons from. And being accused of abusing or raping a woman when you are innocent, and also being accused of doing something that she wanted you to do, that if I had willingly succumbed and made love to her, had sex with her. You only make love when you're in love, when you're married. But if I had sex with her, everything would have been fine. And her way, I wouldn't have been accused, but I would have been breaking the moral laws that I live to. And so it wouldn't have been fine with my conscience. So I was accused and sent to prison. And that was deeply disturbing for me. I didn't know how I was going to make it out of this prison. So question number 8 is, what was prison like? So I'm not sure if you're aware, Matthew's heard of a French prison, and they're locked away in a dark hole and given a bucket to go to the toilet in. And this guy that was Frank Abagnale was locked away in a French prison, and finally the bucket overflowed, and he used to sleep in his own feces, and it was disgusting. And uh, you can imagine the prisons in those days were better. The toilet was changed, but it was dark, it was cold, it was damp, it smelt, it was really disgusting. And cold stone walls, and nothing to do all day, and darkness, and nothing to fill in your thoughts. And so I stood out to the uh, prison authority, person in charge of the prison. The next question is, why did you get promoted in prison? I stood out. My gifts went before me, and I used to sing in prison to keep myself company and keep myself happy. I used to entertain the other prisoners with singing, and this got the attention of the prison guards and the charge of the prison, and he promoted me in the prison to put me second in charge of the prison. It was my singing that did it. It was my jovial manner. One of the lessons you can learn in life is, no matter how bad things are, you can choose to be lighthearted. You can choose to enjoy yourself. You can choose to be happy. Happiness is a choice. And Matthew has suffered from chronic and debilitating depression, so he knows what depression is, and you just can't happy yourself out of depression. So I'm not speaking lighthearted here. It was a depressing situation that I found myself in, but I had a choice to be depressed or to make light of it. And fortunately, I didn't have chronic depression, and so I was able to sing in prison and keep myself happy, and entertain the other prisoners. And of course, I didn't know the Egyptian songs, and yet I learned some of the language, and I was able to um, entertain myself and entertain other prisoners in there. And so I was put in charge, and that got me busy. Instead of having days on end with nothing to do, I was given tasks to do. And even though it may be collecting the buckets where people went to the toilet, and washing them and changing them, and even though it was changing linen and doing different sorts of things, uh, even though it was menial work, it kept me busy and kept me uh, uh, having a purpose, and was meaningful. And the person in charge of the prison was happy that he delegated uh, the the uh, the workload to me, and he was happy, and I was happy, and I wasn't happy that I was in prison. Don't mistake me. Being in a place that you can't get yourself out of, being in a place that's depressing, and you're not able to live up to your talents or your abilities, and you're stuck. That's not a nice place to be in. And so don't be misunderstand that it wasn't a nice place. It wasn't a good place to be, but I had to I had to make something of what I was in. I had to keep myself busy, keep myself entertained, and keep myself from sinking too low in sadness and um, sad thoughts. So the next question is, what was the benefit of being in charge in prison? Um, I there are benefits that you got to eat the best food. You had the choice the um, the grapes that were the freshest, and you had the choice of the nicest food. But I tended to pick out some of the nicest food and gave it to the weakest people in the prison. The food came through, and I had to sort the food and distribute the food. And I tended to look after the people that weren't traveling too well with some of the best food. But I did any time I liked get to taste or experience the best food that was there. Um, and knowing that I had a choice, knowing that I could put away extra for someone else or put it away for myself. Just having that ability, having that choice, made it a better life for me. But I suppose in Matthew's society, at least he eats pretty well, and at the moment he's got a chef living with him, and he's having wonderful food. But um, you've got to make what you can do. One of the other benefits is that I wasn't locked in a cell all day with time stretching from one end of the day to the next end of the day. I wasn't bored. I was busy doing things, and that was a benefit of being in charge of the prison. I also was a good worker in the prison, and the prisoners loved me. They loved me singing as I was going around my duties, and they loved my jovial attitude, and they loved me. And that's a lesson for all of you, is that if you're stuck in a place where there's no promotion, if you're stuck in a place where you're not getting opportunities, if you've got spiritual knowledge and spiritual giftings, and you're not having the giftings fully utilized, if you've got knowledge and no one wants to know the knowledge, if you've got a preaching gift and no one's allowing you to preach, if you're getting held back, um, make just make a way to enjoy your life, make a way to make hay while the sun shines. In other words, if you got a preaching gift, get yourself a computer and get yourself a Zoom program and access to the internet, and start preaching sermons on YouTube. It doesn't matter 10 or 20 people watch it, at least you're preaching, and at least people can be affected by what you do. If you've got a bit of an income, you can start to produce books. If you got a singing gift, and you're not getting discovered by a record label and no one's recording you, well, book a studio and record an album for yourself. Book, save up for a year and book a studio and record one song and release that song on iTunes. Uh, there's so many things you can do when doors haven't been open to you. And I'm speaking from Matthew's experience. He's self-published 58 books, and he's not discovered. He's still in the prison house. He's still subjected to sadness. He hasn't got many friends. He's in his prison clothes, and he's not on the big stage. He's not in any leadership in rulership. He's not being recognised for who he is. He knows so much of the Word of God. He's got such powerful messages, but he's not invited to any churches to share a message. And he's preached 6 times, and he loves to preach, and he loves to have an audience, and he's such a good preacher, but he's not being used. He's in this prison house. And so while I was in charge of the prison house, it gave me options, and it gave me something to do, and it kept me busy. And even though I was locked down, I wasn't in an optimum place. I made something of my life. I allowed my giftings to shine, and allowed myself to be busy. In the prison, I used to interpret dreams for people. Everyone knew if they had a positive or negative dream that I could interpret their dreams. And prisoners used to ask me when I did my rounds in the morning, they'd ask me about their dream, and I'd sit down and explain what was going on. So I was being like a prophet and a seer in the prison, and people loved me. And it's quite okay when you're drunk on the street. There's other drunks on the street that you can talk to. When you're homeless and you find yourself homeless, um, hopefully none of you's reading this are homeless, but if you find yourself homeless, the homeless can be so friendly. It can be a great environment to mix with other people who are in the same condition. So no matter where you find yourself, you can get busy and keep yourself busy, and keep yourself being motivated to share your good life and share love and share understanding with other people. So the next question is, how did you cope in prison? Were you tempted to give up on the prophetic dream? That was one of the hardest things that I had to cope with. Uh, that I'd clearly seen those dreams as a dream interpreter. I'd interpreted a lot of dreams for my brothers and other people in the prison. I've seen them come to pass. You realise that the two servants of the Pharaoh. Um, the two servants of the Pharaoh interpreted their dreams, and then one died and one got out of prison. And I saw the interpretations work out according to what I said. And I was used to interpreting dreams in the prison. I was accurate. And because I was accurate, interpreting dreams, that made my dream that I had of my brothers and my father bowing down to me and being a place of power, that made that even more real and more powerful. And so I just couldn't give up. Of course, Matthew's been in a state in the last few weeks where he's just been willing and saying to God, I give up. I don't have to be anyone great. I'll just continue to scrape together the money to produce books, and I'll just continue whatever you finance me and supply me with finances. I'll continue to do a book a month, and I'll continue as this thing. I don't have to be anything great. I don't have to be this great person. I don't have to travel the world and be a popular speaker. I'm quite happy just to be a nobody and not be known by the world by and large and not be popular. And he's been in this condition where he's in this prison house and he's accepted his fate. And so I was in the prison house thinking the same sort of thing. Will I ever get out of here? How am I ever going to get out of here? What's going to be the answer? And so when I interpreted the dreams of the two guys in the prison house that's mentioned in the Bible, that's just a mention in the Bible. I've interpreted a lot of dreams for people in the prison, and that's why prisoners would ask me. And one of them died and one of them got restored to the Pharaoh. I was hoping the one that got restored to the Pharaoh would make mention of me. And Matthew's got a friend who believes that he did make mention of me to the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh ignored it. But whether he did mention it to the Pharaoh or not, I thought that was my open door. I thought that was going to be my opportunity to leave the prison. And so it was very disappointing not to hear back months and months after that guy left the prison, not to be called by the Pharaoh. I had an extraordinary gift. My gift for interpreting dreams was extraordinary, and I was very, I could not only tell you, I could not only interpret dreams, but I could tell you the dream you had. You could say to me, I had a very disturbing dream last night, and I'd be able to tell you what your dream was and the interpretation of the dream. And dream interpretation is a powerful skill, it's a powerful gift. And like I mentioned, my owner in former video and earlier in the book, my owner is a website that I'll list here, and it's really important sometimes to get your dreams interpreted. And when you've got a tremendous gift of dream interpretation and you're able to do it, you can help a lot of people. And I had a tremendous and powerful gift, and something that a Pharaoh could really use. You understand that when Daniel was in Nebuchadnezzar's palace, he was treated to the finest food and treated above their magicians and their sorcerers and stuff, and was treated like royalty. And kings and leaders tend to have people congregate around them with spiritual gifts. And so I had a gift that was worthy of serving the leader of the country. It was a very practiced gift, very sharp gift. And Matthew's got a gift of prophecy, and his gift of prophecy is really well, but he hasn't served a king yet. And I had the ability and the capacity to do that. And so I was tempted to give up on my dream. I was tempted to give up on the dream of becoming powerful, but it was always in the back of my mind because I was such a sharp and accurate dream foreteller that I knew that when God speaks, and you can't reverse what God said. And so I was confident in it coming to pass. I just wasn't sure how it was ever going to come to pass. And I was disturbed and depressed in some manner. And even though I excelled in the prison, I excelled in Potiphar's house, I excelled in my father's house. Everywhere I'd ever been to work, I excelled. I had a spirit of excellence. I had the ability to do jobs better than anyone else. And I had a real favor on my life. I had the gift of favor. and doors would open to me, and I would excel in anything I turned my hand to. And Psalm 1:3 says, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers, who gives his fruit in season, whose leaf does not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. I had that Psalm 1:3 upon my life. Everywhere I went, things prospered, and everything I did turned to gold. I had the Midas touch. Everything I touched turned to gold. And so I was in a responsible position in the prison house, and I was keeping myself busy, but I was like treading water. I was just turning like a rat in a spinning wheel, just on a treadmill, just running round and round and round in circles. Wasn't really going anywhere. I was just filling in the days and filling in the boredom. But I had so much potential, and I knew I had potential, and I knew I could do mighty things if I could just get out of the prison. But when you're put in prison, uh, it's hard to get out, and so I was hopeful that the guy I interpreted his dream would put in a good report for me. But as the days and months passed after he'd left, I started to give up hope, and um, so I was crushed when the man didn't share uh, my dream interpretation skills with the Pharaoh. Question 9. Uh, how did you hold on when you had no hope? Um, I guess, Matthew understands this. When you've got no choice and you've got no option, what are you to do? Do you just sink in depression and give up? Or do you just keep on going? While ever you can do things, while ever there were buckets to change, while ever there was food to be distributed, while ever people had to be settled in the prison and people had to be moved out, while ever the jobs needed to be done each day, I was doing the jobs, just keeping myself busy, marking time and hoping for my dream to come true. But it was depressing and it was sad, and I was living way beyond my abilities, way underneath my abilities, and so it was hard. It was hard on me, emotionally and spiritually, and um, it's disappointing. Matthew understands this, that when you've got skills and abilities, and you can preach, or you can prophesy, or you can give people a message direct of God. And it's interesting that there's so many people that need a message of God. Matthew understands that he could talk to any businessman and consult uh, with God on behalf of the businessman and help the businessman prosper. But not getting the opportunity to do that, that can be the crushing thing. And so I kept myself busy singing and interpreting dreams in the prison house and doing the daily chores. Um, so that helped me. Keeping busy helped me keep the hope up. And that's one of the keys to suffering, one of the keys to living in the prison house and living before your dream has seen the light of day. One of the keys is to keep busy. Just keep yourself doing what you can do. If you haven't got any skills and abilities, um, if you're not getting the opportunity to use your skills and abilities, read, learn, uh, discipline yourself to learn, write journals of what you're learning, um, start a blog post and start sharing the lessons you're learning in the books that you're reading. It's not so much about the people who read your blog. If you start videos on YouTube, it's not so much the listeners who are listening to your videos. Sure, they're fine and that's wonderful. It's about you expressing yourself and you being able to teach something, you being able to share something. There's so much reward in being busy, and so I tempered my hope. I kept my hope up by staying busy, and it's a real key. One of the things that destroys people who are unemployed is the massive amount of time that they spend each day, getting up each day with no hope for the day, with nothing to do, spending a whole day in boredom and wanting all you want to do is go to sleep because you're just so bored. And Matthew's got a brother who sleeps half the day because he's just bored, and when Matthew hasn't got a book to do, he sleeps half the day. And so, one of the key principles as you're treading water, you're on the hamster wheel going round and round in similar days, one of the keys is to keep yourself busy, keep yourself active, doing something that you've got potential to be doing. If you're going to be a great speaker, be a great speaker on video. If you're going to be a great writer, be a great writer. If you're going to be a florist, offer to work part-time as a florist. You may not be able to work full-time, but find someone where you can do part-time work. Um, you Sometimes you have to not so much ask permission to do your gift. You've got to find a way to experience your gift. You can start a website and offer free prophecy online if you're developing to be a prophet. There's Facebook groups where you can join and do free prophecies, and you can practice doing free prophecies. You can join Matthew's website and offer prophecies on Matthew's website and get paid for it. There's so many things you can do, and sometimes you may feel that you haven't got the opportunity, and that's true. If you're in the prison house, you really haven't got the opportunity, but it doesn't mean you can't do it for free. Doesn't mean you can't practice. It doesn't mean you can't do something. And I'll repeat it, I'll say it again and again. One of the keys to making it through this season in your life is to be busy, to keep busy and keep yourself active. Um, question 10 is, was it easy to interpret the dream? So I eventually got invited to come and interpret the Pharaoh's dream, and he had a dream that meant that it was going to have 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And Matthew thinks there was a couple of dreams that's what it meant. And I not only interpreted a dream, but I gave prophetic wisdom. I gave prophetic counsel, saying you need to collect all the food when there's days of plenty and build silos and store all the food, because when the famine comes, you're going to need the food to get through the famine. And that's what helped Egypt become an empire, because they had so much food when everyone in the surrounding nations ran out of food. And so it was easy for me to interpret the dream, because that's what I did. Just as Matthew has only met me in heaven but hasn't really spoken to me, it's easy for him to hear my voice and say what I'm saying. It's easy. It really is easy for him, because that's his gift. That's what he's practiced, and he's brought about 30 to 40 saints' voices from heaven before, and he's used to bringing Jesus' voice to people. He's done that thousands of times. And so it's easy for him to do that. It's easy for him to speak on my behalf and have me speak through him. He gets in the zone, and I just speak, and he's able just to speak and my words come out of him. It's easy. So it was easy to interpret the Pharaoh's dream, but it was a consequential moment. It was a turning moment. It was an amazing moment, but it wasn't just interpreting his dream that got me promoted to be second in charge. It was the favor in my life. It was the spirit of excellence on my life. It was the fact that everything I turned my hand to prospered, and everything that I touched seemed to explode and have success. And the Pharaoh recognized that about me. He said, well, the more I get this guy in charge of, the more success I'll have. And so he put me in charge of his kingdom, because he knew that it was in good hands, because he could see, as he promoted me, he could see what power and the favor of God was on my life. And so he wanted the favor of God on his life. And this little Israelite sort of boy or Jacob's son. It weren't the Israelites yet. Jacob's son was the key to his success, and he realized that, and so he was backing a winner. So after that happened, and I was promoted to be second in charge of Egypt, it made sense to me for all the suffering. And I'd interpreted hundreds of dreams in prison. And that's the key to people who haven't had success or haven't had opportunities. If you stay busy doing your gift, if you position yourself into a position where you can practice your gift, you just practice and practice and practice. Matthew's done up to 30,000 prophecies. He's practiced a lot. Matthew's got 2,500 videos. He's practiced preaching a lot. Matthew's got 58 books. He's practiced writing a lot. Practice is essential. Practice is the key. And so it was easy for me to interpret the dream, but it was I was more so promoted, not so much because of the dream, but the consequences of the dream, the consequences of making Egypt so powerful. Question 11, how did you cope with royalty, with your good clothes, good food, good wine, and luxury after the prison term? That's a really good question. Thank you, Bethany, Matthew's scribe angel, for that question. It was great to be in clean, fresh, great smelling linen. It was great to be in a palace where everything was fresh and there was no smell of urine or smell of excrement. It's great to be in a fresh, open, sunlit palace. It was great to have clean, fresh clothes and the best of food and the best wine and everything in luxury. It was outstanding. What was different about me, but is that I'd come from nothing. And so just as Daniel refused the luxury food in the Bible and stuck to a plain diet, I wasn't so partial to all the luxury foods and the luxury wine and all the most expensive clothes. Of course, I was in a position of authority eventually, so the king wanted me dressed in the finest of linen. That was part of my job and part of the authority I carried. I had to be dressed well. I had to present well. I had to keep my fitness up, and I had to eat good food. I had to be well nourished to play my potential. But as for living on the hog, living it up, I didn't particularly care for that. I didn't really desire that. But it was a hard adjustment. It wasn't easy. Living in a dirty, stinking prison and then living in a palace is just two different things. And it was a big adjustment to my spirit. And yeah, So the next question is, how did you treat people differently after prison? Were you humble and more loving? That's the amazing thing. As a leader in Egypt, as a person of authority, I was really good with staff, and I was really good at treating people who were lower than me in the staff role, and people who worked for the Egyptian king, and other people we dealt with, and people that we traded with. I had this exceptional personality and this loving, humble attitude towards everyone. And I'd always been this jovial, happy guy. And now I had wealth and I had authority. I continued to be the jovial, happy guy, but I had authority now and power. And so I was able to treat people with dignity and humility and love and compassion. I was able to promote the people I saw promise in. And I was able to promote some of the people that would have continued to be stuck in the prison house without opportunity. I was able to look at the little guy and promote the little guy over the ones with prestige and one with influence. I was able to sort out my management and my staff according to people's abilities and their talents. And I continued to interpret dreams. I interpreted for the Pharaoh's family and staff, and I had a reputation of that. And that's the thing, when you've got a prophetic gift, or when you've got a gifting, you don't give up the gift just because you get promoted and you go to power. Matthew's going to continue all through his life, no matter if he gets popular and travels the world preaching. He's always going to be stopping to strangers on the street and giving them prophecies. He's always going to be practicing his prophetic gifting. And even if he has a website where it may be $200 to get a prophecy off him in the future, he's always going to be doing prophecies. And so when I got promoted and I was in leadership and I had power, I was always interpreting dreams because I love to do it. And when you've got a gift, you love to do it. And so I love to do it. And I was always speaking into people's lives, and people were always coming to me. I didn't seek people out. People were always coming to me, and it was a joy to do it. And it was good to be in a position of authority to help steer people and give people opportunities to achieve their dreams and achieve the fruition of what they were dreaming about. So I was more humble, and um, I achieved success in Egypt, and it's a good end of the story. As I was still got well, 5 questions to go, but it was a wonderful progression of. I'm not sure many people could do it. Not many people would choose to go to prison or be sold into slavery, but it's a lovely story that God had it planned to save Egypt. He needed me in Egypt, and he needed me in the Pharaoh's palace. And if I had been at Potiphar's house, I may not have ever met the Pharaoh's servant. And I had to be in prison to meet the Pharaoh's servant. And so there may never have been at Potiphar's house, there may never have been the link to the Pharaoh. I could have lived all my life on Potiphar's farm, doing the work there in charge, but never been linked up with the Pharaoh, and Egypt would have sunk in that famine. So I had to be divinely placed in the Pharaoh's house to interpret that dream. So God knows what he did. So um, we'll end it there. The next question that we have was how was it to see your brothers again? But we'll leave that to to the next video. So So this is Matthew. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and it looks like it'll be 3 parts, and we'll be doing part 3 in video 3. So if you enjoyed this video, press like. If you didn't enjoy it, press thumbs down. If you want to comment, I'd love you to comment. I look forward to hearing from you and hearing your feedback. God bless.